draft picks. Boston's been shopping Brown since he completed really his best season in the league. He was included in an offer for Giannis. That didn't work out. Remember, Brown was the Finals MVP in 2024. Now, in addition to George, the Celtics get 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round.
This is the initial shockwave. A Finals MVP, a cornerstone of Boston's contender status, traded away for an aging star and a handful of picks. The sheer audacity of the Celtics' move, shipping their star guard, Jaylen Brown, to an in-division rival in the 76ers, immediately raised eyebrows across the league. Paul George, a 6 to 7-year older player, and 4 draft assets, 2 first-round and 2 second-round picks, comprised the return package. On paper, for a player of Brown's caliber, especially after his 2024 Finals MVP performance, the perceived value seemed incredibly low, almost a sacrifice. The question echoed. What were the Celtics thinking? The NBA offseason has exploded. A blockbuster trade, executed with shocking speed, just sent ripples across the league, leaving fans and analysts stunned. This wasn't just a player changing jerseys, this was a seismic shift, reshaping the Eastern Conference landscape in an instant. The ramifications are still unfolding, echoing beyond the immediate teams involved. The league is scrambling to understand the motives, the winners, and the losers. But what if this earth-shattering move wasn't just about 2 teams? What if this unprecedented maneuver, this act of calculated chaos, has unexpectedly paved the way for the biggest free agent decision in years? What if the unthinkable is now imminent? What if the shockwave cleared a direct path for the king himself to land in Philadelphia?
Internally had made the assessment that they were through with the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum duo, that those 2 were not going to lead you to a championship again. And everything you need to know is very simple here. Teams called on Jason Tatum over the last several weeks.
Shams Charania pulls back the curtain on Boston's internal assessment, revealing the deep-seated dysfunction. The Celtics' leadership had made a cold, hard decision. The Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum duo simply couldn't deliver a championship. This wasn't a snap judgment, it was a deeply ingrained belief. The contrast is stark. Calls for Tatum were instantly shut down, but the front office was open for businesses on Brown. This wasn't about if they'd trade him, but when and for whom. It shattered the illusion of a united front, exposing a foundational crack in their championship aspirations, leaving us to wonder, how could they so easily give up on a Finals MVP? The market reacted with disbelief. Trading a player in the prime of his career, fresh off a Finals MVP, for a significantly older player, and what many considered to be a meager collection of draft assets was baffling. It felt like a concession, a white flag waved on a core that had, despite its shortcomings, consistently reached the precipice of championship contention. The immediate perception was that Boston had failed spectacularly in maximizing their return for a bona fide star. Was this a desperate move or something far more cynical at play? The whispers began. This wasn't about getting equal value. It was about getting rid of Jaylen Brown. But why? What internal strife could possibly lead to such a drastic, seemingly self-destructive decision?
Toothpaste was out of the tube.
Yeah.
He did feel a level of disrespect. And listen, the only way to fix all of that was come July when he's eligible for a 2-year, $145 million contract extension. But with this trade, it's very clear to people around the league, the Celtics had no intention of ever giving Jaylen Brown that 2-year, $145 million extension.
The truth stings. Jaylen Brown felt a level of disrespect. The writing was on the wall. Despite his on-court brilliance, despite winning Finals MVP, the Celtics had no intention of offering him the lucrative 2-year, $145 million extension he was eligible for. This wasn't a sudden development, it was a predetermined outcome. Boston had decided to move on, no matter the cost, no matter the perceived slight. The toothpaste was out of the tube, as Shams so eloquently put it, indicating an irreversible break between player and franchise. This wasn't just a business decision, it was a personal one, with lasting implications for player empowerment. Was this move truly about improving the team, or simply about removing a player they no longer wanted at any cost? This revelation from Shams confirms what many suspected. Boston had given up on Jaylen Brown long before this trade. The attempts to move him for Kevin Durant in 2022, and then again for Giannis Antetokounmpo this summer, painted a clear picture. Despite Brown's consistent professionalism and lack of trade requests, the organization viewed him as a trade chip, a means to acquire a perceived higher-tier star. This systematic devaluing of a player, even one performing at an elite level, speaks volumes about the internal dynamics of the Celtics front office. It's a harsh reminder of the cutthroat business side of the NBA, where loyalty can be a one-way street. But this deep-seated disrespect was about to come to a head in a very public way. What happens when a star player knows he's not truly wanted?
And obviously, around the league, everyone is stunned because this is a 29, about to be 30-year-old player being traded in division to an Eastern Conference rival for a player 6-7 years older and also just a few draft assets.
Wow. All right, Big Perk.
The league is stunned. Shams perfectly captures the collective bewilderment. Trading a 29-year-old, Sin Toby 30-year-old, Finals MVP to an Eastern Conference rival for a player 6 or 7 years older, and minimal draft assets defies conventional wisdom. This wasn't just an unexpected trade, it was perceived as an undervaluation of epic proportions. The optics are terrible. Boston essentially bolstered a direct competitor, while seemingly getting pennies on the dollar for a star talent. This move wasn't just surprising, it was a shock to the system, raising immediate questions about Boston's competency and their strategic blunders. How could a perennial contender make such a puzzling move? This is the bitter reality behind the blockbuster. Jaylen Brown, a homegrown talent, a two-way force, a Finals MVP, was ultimately deemed expendable by the Celtics. The refusal to offer him a max extension, despite his performance and age, broadcasts a loud and clear message. The Celtics never truly saw him as part of their long-term championship-winning future. This decision, shrouded in internal assessments and previous trade attempts, culminates in a stunning divorce that leaves the NBA world shaking its head. It's a stark reminder that even the most successful players can be mere assets in the eyes of an organization. But how did the rest of the league, and more importantly, their rivals, react to this astonishing move?
This was one of the dumbest trades in the history of the game. I don't give a damn what nobody say. I don't want to hear about what Jaylen Brown is making, because the one thing that we can't sit up here and say is that this guy is overpaid. When you talk about one of the better two-way players in the game.
Kendrick Perkins holds nothing back, delivering a scathing F for failure to Brad Stevens and the Celtics. He calls it one of the dumbest trades in the history of the game, dismissing any talk of Brown being overpaid. Perkins passionately argues that Brown is unquestionably one of the better two-way players in the game, a top 10 player, unequivocally asserting his prime status. His fury is palpable, articulating the outrage felt by many who saw the trade as an unforgivable act of self-sabotage by Boston. This isn't just a critique, it's a declaration that Boston fundamentally misunderstood their own player. So, if Boston failed so spectacularly, who exactly emerged victorious? The widespread shock in the NBA wasn't just about the trade itself, but the perceived imbalance of value. Teams across the league couldn't fathom why Boston would settle for such a return, especially from a rival. It fueled speculation that the Celtics were either desperate to move Brown or had severely mismanaged his trade value. This transaction wasn't seen as a calculated chess move, but rather a chaotic misstep, a fumbled asset that landed squarely in a competitor's lap. It painted a picture of a franchise in disarray, making a deal from a position of weakness, not strength. But while most analysts were scratching their heads, one prominent voice was absolutely furious with Boston's decision, calling it an all-time blunder. And he had a much different take on the beneficiaries.
I have to give the Philadelphia 76ers an A. And by the way, they still have one of the biggest free agents out there on the market right now in LeBron James, who has been looking and watching what teams are doing. And if I'm LeBron, I look at this Philly situation.
This is the bombshell that changes everything. Perkins not only awards the 76ers a resounding A for the trade, but immediately pivots to the biggest name in free agency, LeBron James. The connection is direct, explicit. If I'm LeBron, I look at this Philly situation and I'm saying, hey, what's happening? The added detail that Tyrese Maxey is represented by Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, isn't a coincidence. It's a critical piece of the puzzle. This isn't just a trade anymore, it's a potential pathway, a shocking new contender emerging, possibly created specifically for the King. As Jaylen Brown's departure from Boston unwittingly cleared the path for LeBron to land in Philadelphia, transforming the entire league, Perkins' fiery indictment resonates deeply. His analogy of receiving iPhones and Clorox wipes for a player in his prime perfectly encapsulates the perceived inadequacy of Boston's return. He hammers home the point that Jaylen Brown's talent and value are undeniable, making the Celtics' decision an egregious misstep, a true failure of asset management. This wasn't just a bad trade, it was a betrayal of a star player and a baffling gift to a direct rival. The Celtics, a team built on shrewd moves, seemed to have utterly fumbled their most valuable non-Tatum asset. But while Boston took a significant hit to their reputation and roster, their Eastern Conference foes in Philadelphia were celebrating. And their celebration might just be a prelude to something even bigger. Could this trade have secretly laid the groundwork for the most shocking free agency move of the decade?
Type guys, but at the end of the day, when you talk about big-bodied Brunson, we're talking about MVP caliber play. Peyton Pritchard is not going to rise to that level, and the fact that they're thinking that way lets you know that the dysfunction that's going on in the Boston Celtics organization.
Perkins dismantles Boston's internal narrative with brutal honesty. The idea that Peyton Pritchard could make a Jalen Brunson type of leap and replace Jaylen Brown's production is branded dumb and crazy. He emphatically states that Pritchard, while a solid player, is not MVP caliber and will not rise to that level. This fantastical belief, according to Perkins, exposes the dysfunction that's going on in the Boston Celtics organization. It's a damning indictment, suggesting a front office out of touch with reality, clinging to analytics over common sense. This reveals a deeper flaw, not just in their trade strategy, but in their entire organizational philosophy. How could they be so deluded? Perkins' statement is the linchpin for our entire discussion. The Jaylen Brown trade didn't just bolster the 76ers, it created an immediate, undeniable allure for LeBron James. Imagine a lineup with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Jaylen Brown.
They were seeking 4, 5 first-round picks in the marketplace, but my understanding is the Celtics set the bar so high from the beginning, no one met that price. Some teams even decided to move on, and so when you shop a player of this caliber, the valuation only plummets.
Shams exposes Boston's critical error in judgment. They set the bar so high from the beginning, demanding 4 or 5 first-round picks, a price no one would meet. This hubris, combined with the natural plummeting of a player's valuation as time drags on, led to a self-inflicted wound. Teams simply decided to move on, leaving Boston in a desperate position. This wasn't about a lack of interest in Jaylen Brown. It was about the Celtics overplaying their hand, ultimately forcing them to accept a much lesser deal. The market dictated reality, but Boston refused to listen, ultimately costing them dearly. So, who capitalized on this misjudgment? The Pritchard leap defense is almost comical in its audacity, yet deeply concerning for Celtics fans. To justify trading a Finals MVP by projecting such an unrealistic leap for a role player demonstrates a severe disconnect from the realities of NBA talent evaluation. Perkins' blunt assessment cuts through the spin, highlighting the absurdity of believing Pritchard could fill Brown's massive shoes. This isn't just a bad take. It's an organizational delusion, a symptom of the dysfunction that has plagued Boston's decision-making. It suggests a front office more interested in constructing a narrative than admitting a mistake or truly valuing their star. But this wasn't Boston's only misstep in the Jaylen Brown saga. Their handling of the trade market itself was a masterclass in how not to conduct business. How did they fumble the bag so badly?
Wait as long as possible. Why didn't they drag this out till the season, to training camp, just see what else shakes up? And the Sixers were among maybe 8 to 10 teams that would always check in, but the Sixers stuck with it. They stayed engaged. Their new president of basketball operations, Mike Gansey, made an offer a couple weeks ago. He never left the party, never made that Irish goodbye. He stayed.
While others walked away, the Sixers stuck with it, demonstrating remarkable patience and strategic persistence. Their new president of basketball operations, Mike Gansey, never left the party, staying engaged even as Boston's demands were unrealistic. This tenacity paid off handsomely. The Sixers understood the market dynamics, recognized Boston's looming desperation, and simply waited for their moment. They were the last team standing, securing a Finals MVP at a bargain price by simply being the most persistent and opportunistic suitor. This wasn't just a trade, it was a masterclass in exploiting a rival's missteps. This seismic shift in the East has fundamentally altered the landscape, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. Now, let's turn our attention to the ultimate prize in free agency: LeBron James. Where is the king truly headed? James's analysis paints a clear picture of Boston's tactical failure. Their exorbitant asking price alienated potential suitors and stagnated the market for Brown. By refusing to adjust their demands, they actively diminished their own asset, trapping themselves in a corner. This wasn't a shrewd negotiation. It was a slow-motion car crash of asset management. While they clung to an unrealistic valuation, the clock ticked, Brown's perceived trade value waned, and their options narrowed. This strategic blunder, driven by an inflated sense of their players' worth, set the stage for one team to patiently swoop in and snatch a star. While Boston clung to their pride, One team simply waited for the inevitable. Who mastered the art of patience? This is the difference between an amateur and a pro. Amateurs look for shortcuts. Pros look for principles. Master this, and you stop competing. You start dominating. I've seen this pattern so many times. When you truly understand this concept, everything changes. It's a simple shift in perspective, but the impact is massive. I've seen this pattern so many times. When you truly understand this concept, everything changes. It's a simple shift in perspective, but the impact is massive. This is exactly what separates the top 1% from the rest. It's not just about hard work, it's about smart work and mindset. Pay attention to the details because that's where the magic happens. Listen closely to what was just said. That is the key to unlocking real potential. Most people miss this, but it's the most important part. This is a fascinating point that really highlights the core message. It is these small details that often separate the amateurs from the professionals. That right there is the golden nugget. If you apply this one thing, your results will skyrocket. Consistency combined with this mindset is undefeated.